particular part is really the second part of the cork roll.
Someone who is always a winner is David Perrin, intrepid pilot of the Pitt Special Aerobatic Plane, who entertains a huge crowd with his impressive display in the skies above Douglas Bay before the rally starts. The usual relaxed holiday atmosphere of the Isle of Man contrasts sharply with the excitement and tension at the start of the rally. The Manx has increased in stature over the years, and this year attracted some top foreign crews, including 1980 World Rally champion Walter Rowe in his works replica Porsche 911 SC.
Walter Rowe, the rally champion of the world, in the Porsche 911, number one, hosting up the Russian International Rally on this beautiful sunny morning here in the Isle of Man.
Behind him, twice Manx winner Tony Pond, who, despite the presence of the world champion, is still hot favourite to win.
Off we go in the Chevettes.
Penty Ricker in a pensive mood, knowing full well the difficult task ahead of him.
A man with split priorities on this rally. How are you going to play it?
I don't know, just play it as it comes really. I've no real plan of attack.
There's no team order to protect Penty's rear then?
No team order at all. Every man for himself.
By the same token, it's important, I think, that you get a good result as well.
Well, I think it's very important. I mean, I haven't had a exceptionally good year up to now, and really I need a good result on this rally.
Any plans for next year yet?
No, nothing at all yet.
So this and the RAC really matter.
I suppose this will probably depend a lot on it, really.
Yeah. Anyway, all the best. Have a good rally.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Special Stage 3 faulty will, and as Roll hurtles through Salby village, he has already opened out a slender lead over the first two stages. But behind him, drama. A Mikkola has hit a bridge parapet on the approach to the village, breaking off a wheel and damaging his axle and going no further. Jimmy McRae is the 1981 Rothmans RAC Open Rally champion. Terry Capey is going well and lying in third place. Tony Pond is making up time after a hair-raising 100-mile-an-hour spin on the opening stage. Irishman Donny Keating. Malcolm Patrick trying a works-loan Chevette instead of his usual Ascona 400. Belgian star Robert Groupmans, followed by Didi in his plastic Fiat 131. Delighting the crowd is the old maestro Roger Clark. Also entertaining with his own brand of driving is Irish Group 1 driver Austin McHale. By stage 5, the pace is really hotting up, with Roll taking 7 seconds off Pond on this 13-mile stage. With McRae dropping well down after a delay due to punctures. In a marked contrast to the roar of the first three crews, Russell Brooks coasts quietly along in his Talbot Sunbeam, obviously in trouble.
What's the problem, Russell?
We don't know. Something broke in the engine. There's no oil anywhere, and there's no holes on the outside of the block, so obviously something mechanical inside.
Nasty noises. Oh,
yeah, sounds like a bag of bits in there.
Oh dear. Bad luck so soon in the rain, doing quite well as well.
Yes, very pleased the way it was going. No problems. Still, very well.
Cavy's in trouble too. He's been delayed by a puncture and has Roger Clark in the MCD Escort right behind him. KB has more problems further along the stage when his axle breaks and he's out of the rally after such a promising start. John Price is motoring steadily in the 200-brake turbo Renault, whilst the unfortunate Cyril Bolton is destined to retire further along the stage when he rolls his X-Works TR7 V8. The subsequent blockage leaves the organisers no choice but to cancel the stage, although this decision is not made until some hours later and caused some confusion until it was resolved. Special Stage 7, and whilst the leaders have gone through, it is interesting to look at some of the other crews who are hard on their heels. Brendan Fagan is utilising all his Irish tarmac experience to lie 18th. John Price still getting to grips with the Renault. Mike Stewart coping well with a loaned Group 4 Escort instead of his normal Group 1 car. Sean Campbell is in the first 10 in his X-Works Ascona 400. And local driver Gary Leese lying just out of the top 10 despite his tail-happy driving style. Austin McHale more subdued than usual, but still showing signs of contact with the scenery. There are two ways of going up Snay Fell. There is the leisurely, scenic route via the mountain railway, or the more exciting way in which competitors tackle it. Roll takes third fastest time in the beautiful sounding Porsche, with McRae 1 second ahead of him. Setting fastest 1 second ahead of the Opel. A tyre-smoking Wilson is 11 seconds behind Pond, with Malcolm Patrick off the pace on this stage and still getting to grips with the Chevette. Droogmans is trying hard in his Tony Masdam prepared car. Whilst Clark shows he has lost none of his skills in an Escort. Per Eklund is finding the big Toyota Celica a handful, but as always still gives 101%. Stage 10 is the final stage before a welcome rest halt back in Douglas, where crews will be reseeded prior to the night section. Whilst the pace at the head of the field never slackens, crews further down the field are also putting in spirited performances. Louise Aitken and Ellen Morgan are lying 22nd overall and astonishing some of their male rivals with their progress in the Group 2 Fiesta. John Morley has found that the Isle of Man can be an unforgiving place if not treated with respect. Stage 11. And the start of the difficult night section. And the question on everyone's lips is, can Roll stay ahead? McRae with the pressure of the championship struggle over, is aiming to see that he doesn't. Whilst Pond actually sets fastest time at the start of an incredible series of stage times during the night that was to give him a lead he was never to lose. Fierce as ever, with Pond, despite a precautionary gearbox change, consolidating his lead. McRae moves ahead of Roll. Wilson is in fourth place ahead of Droopmans, with Patrick and Campbell in close touch. Next morning, the action restarts in sight of the island's #1 tourist attraction, the Laxey Wheel. Pond goes through, now firmly in the lead, after his amazing night drive. McRae swapping the odd second with him, but making no real impression. Roll, on the other hand, is fastest on the 3 opening daylight stages in a bid to put the flying Porsche onto the victor's rostrum. The leaders are engaged in their own personal battle, but the crews behind them are just as determined and are ready to move up the leaderboard should anyone strike trouble. For Droopmans, St. John's is as far as he goes. The engine in his Escort had been making odd noises for the past couple of stages, and it finally cried enough when the head gasket blew. Malcolm Patrick inherits 5th place. Eklund is pressing on in the Celica and looks like giving Toyota GB their first decent result this year. Clark is gradually getting faster and reveling being back in an Escort again. Price takes a completely different line through this bend. Whilst Joe Roberts powers his Porsche along, determined to improve on his present top 20 position. With 8 stages to go before the finish, positions at the front have not altered, with Pond and Roll actually recording equal times on this stage. McRae and Wilson being 5 seconds and 14 seconds behind respectively. Mike Stewart over Didi, and John Brown is surprising many with his turn of speed and is just outside the top 10. Austin McHale is leading Group 1, although he's been having a hard struggle with Martin Freestone. Starvey and Pond, McRae and Roll all beat the bogey time. For Eklund, however, it is to be the end. A drive to the lubrication system on his Celica brakes, and he's out. Another sad end for Toyota. Malcolm Patrick is also having problems, although fortunately not terminal. The exhaust manifold is cracking open. Stages to go, and Tony Pond demonstrates why he is the king of the island, although on this stage he is beaten by McRae and by Roll, who records fastest time, and as an indication of just how quick he is, he takes 32 seconds off Malcolm Wilson. Patrick's exhaust manifold now sounds much worse, although with the end almost in sight, he isn't too worried. Somehow Roger Clark gives the impression he's done this before, with a beautifully controlled drift through the hairpins. Is putting in his usual tidy professional performance and is well pleased with his first major Group 4 drive. Austin McHale is back to his more usual flamboyant style on his way to the Group 1 award. Turning in a superb performance to finish in 14th place and win her class and the ladies' award. the last time we will see the Porsche of Walter Roll. He breaks a drive shaft on the very last stage, almost within sight of the finish. So Wilson inherits third place, with Sean Campbell making it a splendid weekend for General Motors with fourth overall. Malcolm Patrick rattling his way to sixth place. Roger Clark finishes a crowd-pleasing fifth in the MCD Escort. Brendan Fagan brings the fifth General Motors car home in seventh. And Mike Stewart clinches a mature performance with eighth. Gets his colourful Fiat into the ninth spot. And John Brown shows his future potential with a fine 10th overall. Back on the finishing ramp in Douglas, after another classic and memorable Manx rally, Tony Pond celebrates his third victory with co-driver Mike Nicholson. They finished only 37 seconds ahead of Jimmy McRae and Ian Grinrod, who emerged as worthy and very popular winners of the overall championship series.
Familiar face of Terry Harriman over on this side. And the chairman of the Board will be dropping the flag to start them off, Terry Harriman. I'll be telling them which way to go with it. Terry Harriman there. The man with the pace notes, of course, this is what makes this rally so different. A pace note rally, very fast, so much of it on the tarmac, as you know, and the cars lining up now down there, Hannah Mikkola, and number 3, the irrepressible Jimmy McRae, and we'll have a word as soon as they come up on the ramp. So Harry Vatanen waiting to go off now, very shortly.
Jimmy, good morning. Manx Rally 1982. Can you tell us a little bit about your chances on this year's rally?
Tell you better on Saturday night about 5 o'clock.
So far this year, you've had a lot of victories. You've had the Helldikis Rally, you had a good result in Greece. What do you think this event's going to be like for you?
I think this event is obviously it's the fastest event in the calendar, and I think this year with the 3 days instead of the 2 days, it's going to be quite tough. It's going to be sore on the car, because we hope, you know, that the reliability of Opel that we've had throughout the season will pull us through.
There's no night stages, of course, this year. Do you think that'll have any bearing on the overall results?
I don't think so, really. I think probably the night stages would have suited us better, because we knew the night stages pretty well. The only man we couldn't beat in the night stages was Pond, and he's not here, you see. So, but I think the rallies, and even though without the night stages, it's a tougher event this year.
Jimmy, just finally, you're always very, very quick on the island with Tony. Apart from yourself, who do you see as, you know, the contenders for victory this year?
Well, I think, you know, the Quattros is obviously an unknown quantity over here. I personally think it's going to be very quick. And I think Ari with the Ford, I think he has no championship to worry about. He's just wanting to win the rally. You know, and with Henry, who wants to win the championship, I think really anyone in the top 10 could win this rally.
Very wide open.
Yeah, it's very wide open. I think it's the best entry the Manx have had.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Down goes the flag and away goes the world champion, number 1, Harry Vatanen. Send him off now. Give him to the board. Send him off now on day 1 of the Rothmans Manx International Rally.
Harry Vatanen on stage 1, up on the side of Snaefell. The car has been rebuilt by MCD and shot by Pirelli. Mikkola in the Sutton Run Quattro. Can he continue the winning streak he started in Finland? McRae and Grinrod. Blomqvist at the second works Talbot, first outing this year for the Coventry team. Stage 3, Glasgow, and Henry Toivonen leads Vatanen by 5 seconds. Next, Terry Cabey with Jimmy McRae 4th. Belgian journalist Willie Wyans crosses the road to meet disaster. The Quattro is running badly, and Mikkola is back in 8th place. but the two Talbots retire at the same spot, both with no oil pressure. Out too goes Eklund with a hold piston. Brendan Fagan has hit poor Willie Wyans, and though things look bad now, miraculously Willie suffered only a cracked kneecap and was around and about again next day. A sobering moment for Dubliner Fagan, though. By stage 6, Vatanen has slipped back as Toivonen blasts over the islet. Further back, the battle for class honours starts to warm up. Stuart Roberts at 24th overall. Alex Jackson, 20th. And John Midgley, 22nd. Salty Will for the second time, and Vatanen is quickest, closing to within 30 seconds of Toivonen. KB is fourth, nearly a minute behind McRae. And a spectacular Bertie Fisher leads the Irish on 6th. Starby, stage 15, and Toivonen pulls one back. Mikkola has had a new gearbox and is still back in 8th.
There you go, Martin, lad, you'll there you go.
On the next, Ingerbrook, Brooks is 4th quickest. Patrick has got ahead of Fisher. Ian Tilk is going well in 10th spot. Midgley leads Group A opponent Russell Close, despite the Manta's horsepower advantage. John Price is 15th and leads Group B. Next morning, 68 of the 106 original starters return to Douglas for the second leg.
Welcome, Patrick. Good morning, and you're driving the Bowling Catania Scona 400. Can you tell us a little of how the Manx Rally has gone for you so far?
Yes, not too badly. We've had a number of niggling problems. Front wheel puncture on one stage, which we had to drive 3 or 4 miles on. And yesterday evening, the last 2 stages, we did with a chronic misfire above 6,000 revs. We've changed everything electrical and petrol-wise that we can lay our hands on, so we're hoping to find that, this morning that will have cleared itself. Very good rally, incredibly fast speed this year. It seems to have stepped up into another plane of high-speed rallying. The times set as record times last year by Tony Pond, Walter Hall and Jimmy McRae are being beaten hands down on every stage. Incredible.
We've heard this morning, in actual fact, that on some stages you've been setting faster times than Tony Pond's times from last year. Is that right?
Yes, on a couple of stages we've been quicker than the fastest times last year. I mean, we're line 6 at the moment, and you look at the times at the end of the stage, and there's a whole new world above you, with the real headbangers getting in at fantastic times. And I think Ari yesterday set a time 15 seconds faster over South Barrule than last year's time, and it's considered if 1 or 2 seconds is normal improvement year by year, and it just seems to have taken an enormous step up this year.
Ingrid Rod, Jimmy McRae's co-driver. We've been hearing from the drivers this morning that the stages are incredibly fast, so much so more than last year. Can you tell us a little bit about it from your side of the seat?
Yeah, well, it's twice as fast from this side of the car, because I haven't got a steering wheel, you see. It really is very fast, yeah.
The pace notes obviously on this event are tight like any other practice event. I mean, literally, you spend most of your time with your head down. How do you find it as a passenger? Is it uncomfortable for you?
Well, it's not too bad until, say, this morning when you wake up, you get a terrible sore neck with a helmet flying from side to side, you know. That's the only after effect, really.
And on the first stage of the day, the leaderboard changes. Toivonen punctures, giving Vatanen the lead, and McRae moves to second. At Erie, Harry has a lead of 34 seconds. Is sixth, 2 minutes behind KB. Whilst Fisher, as usual, looks hairy. He is seventh, half a minute clear of Mikkola. The new leader arrives at St John's for service.
Harry Vatanen, new leader of the 1982 Manx Rally. Very warm, obviously. Can you tell us a bit about how the rally's going for you, Harry?
It's going with no problems at this moment, and I hope not to have any problems. And this morning I felt that it's somehow I can't drive as fast as yesterday, but so everybody else seems to be the same. You know, maybe it's difficult to get it going in the morning.
Henry had a puncture, I believe, on stage one, which allowed you past. What is your leading margin over him now?
Well, I don't know. I should be 45 seconds or so, roughly.
No problems with the car at all?
No, not at all. It's just the speed seems to be getting so high that that suspension simply isn't adequate enough for this high speed anymore. It's going so much faster than last year.
I heard you saying on a Manx radio report yesterday that spectators are a problem. How have they been today?
Well, there was one particular place where they were, you know, for example, round the table corner, that's where they were located not so well. And this morning, I mean, I didn't see anybody there in the bad place, so maybe they have taken notice of that.
Vatanen attacked too and rolled at high speed on the next stage. McRae now leads. Henry second. Brooks third as Cavy's out too with Campbell failure. McRae has 30 seconds advantage, but Toivonen takes time off him on all but one of the day's remaining stages. Cathcart slowing with a puncture, allowing Brooks to catch him. is the last we shall see of Mikkola as a failed piston ring brings retirement. Islander Ian Corkle is up to 9th. Midgley is now 16th, 5 minutes ahead of close. Theo Vengris, a Skåne 400, is 13th from start, number 102. Toivonen's back in the lead, 17 seconds ahead of Jimmy. Russell is third, 34th. Malcolm Patrick and Phil Short 5th, and Ian Tilk 6th. Fog greets the crews on the third and final morning. Where's Toivonen? Here's McRae back in the lead. Yes, Henry went off on the first stage of the morning, ditching the car on the moorland and allowing Jimmy McRae into an unassailable lead and his second consecutive British Championship. And so to the top 10 finishers. First, McRae and Grinrod. Second, Brooks, 2 minutes behind him. Fisher, third, 5 minutes further back. And Patrick, 10 minutes behind him. Ian Tilk finishes 5th overall. John Price 6th. Robin Farrington 7th. Bengry 8th. Martin Freestone 9th. And Mike Hutchinson 10th.
Get him out to the front of the car with Ian. Ian, you out of there, getting crushed in the rush. The Rosling goes on Motorleaf and Jimmy McRae.
Tied out.
Roslin's Manx champion, and Jimmy, I know you'll be delighted over this, and of course, the Rosling British Open champion.
The final round of the British Championship is traditionally the Rothmans Manx Rally, acknowledged as perhaps the ultimate test for man and machine. Held over the demanding, undulating roads of the Isle of Man, weeks of practice to perfect the all-important pace notes come to a head as the start looms near on the rain-swept promenade at Douglas. Leading crews away was Stig Blomqvist in the all-conquering Audi Quattro, anxious to prove that his win in Ulster was no fluke and the Quattro really was competitive on tarmac. His main opposition was to come from the trio of Opel Manta 400s of Toivonen, Vatanen and McRae, and of course from the Chevettes twins Brooks and KB. Group A was to be as hotly contested as ever. Per Eklund, who had already sewn up the Group A title in Ulster, was to be challenged hard by Chris Lord's Mazda and the 2 escorts of Wilson and Louise Aitken. Tyre choice is always a critical factor, and no more so than across the first few rain-lashed stages. Toivonen soon blasts off into the lead to pulverize the opposition right from the start, with teammate Vatanen close behind. Brooks was trying his hardest and was involved in a ding-dong battle with last year's winner, Jimmy McRae. Blomqvist's Quattro was just not in the hunt. The handling was absolutely appalling. Surprise entry, Tony Pond and Rob Arthur in the Works Group A Rover had the crowd on their toes as they flung the huge car around in typical flamboyant style. Sadly, it lasted no further than the second stage, where it retired with a broken half-shaft. The leader in Group A was John Midgley in the Toyota Corolla, putting his 1,000 miles of practice to good use. Behind him came Malcolm Wilson's escort. Of Eklund there was no sign. Sadly, he had suffered ignition pack failure on the opening stage and had dropped right back to the end of the field, ensuring that the spectators were in for an even bigger treat than usual as he fought his way to the head of the pack. Chris Lord was taking no chances in the Mazda RX-7, knowing there were many competitive miles still to go, allowing plenty of time to make his bid for the lead. The format of this year's Manx allowed crews plenty of service time in the spacious service area behind the TT grandstand in Douglas, between laps of 4 or 5 stages at a time. For Audi, it gave an opportunity to alter the suspension on Blomqvist's car in an effort to improve the handling. And even the Opels were indulging in some detail modifications to try and extract those vital extra seconds. Tyres were still the most critical factor, of course. Chase cars were carrying even more tyres than usual as they struggled to cope with the vagaries of the weather and the constant changes of mind from their respective crews. At the head of the field, no quarter was asked or given. Even among the Opel team, there seemed to be intense rivalry. Brooks continued to drive like a man possessed, but was making little impression on the Rothmans cars. Blomqvist ploughed on, as did Eklund, who was heading for the Group A lead, having made up 3 minutes on the others. Germany's Manfred Hero in the big Porsche was destined for an early bath, however, when he misjudged things after the Ford on the South Barul stage.
Alan? Slow the other one down, don't all rush up here.
Okay, flag,
do your job.
Yeah, look after him.
Okay. All right. Come on, mate. Other way, please.
Off the road. Okay. Okay.
You pick that flag up.
Okay.
Watch me back, Terry, will you?
Okay. Pay attention. Yeah, okay. Watch yourself there, boys. Hey, give her up. That's it. Keep it going.
Manfred, hast du 2 Paar Strümpfe dabei?
With roads beginning to dry out, the Opels pushed even further ahead, with Brooks trailing them by almost 1.5 minutes. Terry Cabey was in 5th place, ahead of Blomqvist, with Ireland's Bertie Fisher in the Manta 400 just behind, but destined to move ahead as he gradually got more and more into the groove, much to the delight of the many Irish fans on the island. Another Irish crew doing supremely well were Robin Lyons and Seamus McCanny in their Group 2 Sunbeam. Seeded at 95, they were to make it into the top 10 by the end of the first day. Martin Freestone also surprised many with a stirring performance to get his escort into 10th spot after a good run. Group A had sorted themselves out, with Eklund leading Wilson, Lord, Midgley and then Louise Aitken. Friday morning dawned dry and windy. Many breathed a sigh of relief, not the least Blomqvist. Toivonen again powered off, setting fastest time, with teammate Vatanen in hot pursuit, and actually taking the quickest time on the next 3 stages. McRae was trying his best, but obviously his chances of another victory looked remote against such a show of force. Axle problems too almost caused his retirement, but he managed to make it back to service in Douglas, where a replacement unit was fitted. Cabey nudged a bank in his efforts to remain in contention, needing new suspension and steering rack. Eklund was consolidating his lead in Group A, whilst Lord had moved into second spot, ready to challenge for the lead, with Wilson trailing in third and Midgley set to attack in the second Team Corolla. The first stage after Douglas' service was Abbeyland, where everyone looked spectacular as they blasted through the lanes. Robin Lyons almost threw away his good position, however, as he slid sideways on the loose gravel into a curb, breaking a wheel and causing an axle leak. Luckily for him, he didn't hit the house.
Sorry, Tim. Fasten your belts before you sit on.
For McRae, this stage was a disaster. Landing heavily after the crossroads yump, he snapped a half shaft, and that was the end of his chances for 1983.
What's happened, Jim?
Lost drive in the new axle.
Brand new?
Brand new. So, that's it. Finished.
Oh dear.
The one in the van's coming out to get us.
Was it just a precautionary change that you had it always?
No, stripped to diff and it's all to go.
Who is it that's coming to pick us up?
I don't know yet. David's on his way.
Yeah, Roger, thanks.
On the stage car.
Right, we have everybody off the roads now because the service crew is coming. Okay, everybody behind the hedge.
Just wallop, over the crossroads and downhill, and just there was no drive after that.
Christ, the thing's the one that you use for testing, the one that bedded in, take it out, change all the oil, get it
oil, there's oil in the left-hand tube.
Is that oil coming out the tube there? Brake fluid for completing it, I would say.
Is it?
It's just fresh, isn't it? Brake fluid. Whereabouts is it?
The two leading Opels decided to call a halt to their personal battle and consolidated their position at the head of the field without resorting to undue risks. Cabey and Brooks continued to press on as hard as ever in their chase of Blomqvist. now into third place after McRae's demise. It was at this stage that the rally almost ground to a halt when Mike Patterson's escort rolled on the Erie stage, blocking the road. Following cars were held up so long that the inevitable cancellation of more stages resulted. Bertie Fisher was able to effect an axle change during this period, but it was all to no avail, as he retired on the following Abbeyland stage after hitting a wall. Toivonen and Vatanen continued their gamesmanship with Blomqvist in third place, and Brooks and Cabey fourth and fifth respectively. Local drivers Tony Higgins, Escort, and Ian Corkhill, Porsche, uphold Manx honours. And they were followed by John Weatherly's Citroën Visa, Robin Lyons in the Sunbeam, and rounding off the first 10 and leading Group A, Chris Lord in the Mazda. Eklund had suffered another ignition pack failure, and so had to begin his fight all over again. Wilson had retired yet again with transmission failure. The final day, and 13 stages remaining. It was bound to be unlucky for someone. But who? Last year, disaster struck the Opel team, who were taking no chances this year, as the terrible twins coasted, if their driving can ever be described as that, to a 1-2 victory, delighting not only their own management, but sponsors Rothmans as well.
Really bad patch in his rallying career, and he hasn't got it. He just hasn't got any wins, although he has put up some really remarkable performances. Right. So I think it is his time to win something.
That'll be very nice. I'm sure you'll be very pleased to see him win.
Oh yes, I don't mind at all.
Good, thanks.
It was Audi's turn to be the unlucky team. Blomqvist had been trying as hard as ever, and no one could doubt his commitment as he battled to keep ahead of Brooks and Cabey. Even though they were chipping away the seconds, he felt he had enough to stay in third place. He had steering and suspension problems to contend with, but was not about to give up. He may not have wanted to, but the Audi's engine certainly did. And on the Brandywell stage, it let go with a bang, putting a Rob through the side. A bitter end to a marvellous season, which gave him the driver's title, but lost Audi the manufacturer's crown. And so Brooks moved into third. He had been convinced he could pass Blomqvist even without his retirement. He had tried his all, driving the 3 days of intense competition in what is basically an outdated and underpowered car. Next year we'll probably see him behind the wheel of a Manta 400, so things are likely to be even closer. Terry Cabey in fourth was just pleased to finish. He's had a disastrous season, which he must be glad is behind him. With a competitive car, he's a force to be reckoned with, and who knows what he plans for 1984. Certainly, any championship round would be poorer without his flamboyant driving style. Ian Corkhill brought his incredibly sounding Porsche into fifth spot, pleasing the locals, who like to see one of their own make it into a top placing. Robin Lyons, despite his off, made it into sixth place, making a mockery of the current FIA seeding system. Per Eklund demonstrated Toyota's faith in the Group A series with yet another win. 5 out of 6 at their first attempt to take the Group A championship and, just as important, the overall manufacturers' championship. Chris Lord battled hard all season, and nowhere more so than on the Manx, swapping the lead with Eklund, but eventually having to give second best. John Midgley confirmed Toyota's support in the second Team Toyota GB Corolla, having had his ups and downs throughout the season. A good result on the final round was just reward. Harold Demuth brought the Audi 80 Quattro into 10th spot after a disappointing run. He was never in contention for a higher place, and there must remain a doubt as to the future of this project. The future coverage of major rallies is in no doubt, however. VTV's cameras will be there, bringing all the action, excitement and drama of these superb sporting occasions.
Congratulations, Mayor Vatanen, to Henry Toivonen and Harry.